Welcome to the Goal Assist podcast. My name is Joshua Price. Thank you for watching. For those who are new to this, what our aim is to bring you access to executives across the football industry. We have this podcast, but what we also do is follow up with a live Q&A with all our guests. So if you're someone that wants to network with football executives, use the link below and join us for our live Q&As. Next week, we have the brilliant James Hill, who's the Director of Legal and Governance at Norwich City, followed by today's guest, who I'm really excited to introduce to you all, Kit Simons. Kit, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Good to see you, Josh.
Brilliant. So to start off, I really want to take you back. It's the day of your 21st birthday party. It's the quarter-final against Nottingham Forest. This isn't any old Nottingham Forest side. This is Roy Keane, Stuart Pearce, Teddy Sheringham. Would you be able to share the story of what happened on that day and afterwards with the people who are listening?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, like you say, it was my 21st. I think my actual birthday was the following day. I think it was the 7th of March. My birthday's on the 8th. But that night, I had my 21st party in Portsmouth. And it just happened to be the day we were playing Forest in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. It's my first full season as a first team player at Portsmouth. I made my debut at 17, but had been sort of very, very much in and out, more out than in up to that time. But then Jim Smith came in the beginning of that season, and I played every game. And we just went on this run in the FA Cup, and we got to the quarterfinals. Played a great Forest team. Nigel Clough as well was in there. They're a really good side. Obviously with Brian Clough as manager, so they were a tremendous team. Yeah, we managed to beat them 1-0. Goal from Alan McLaughlin. And I had my party that night. I remember after the game, I got called up into the chairman's lounge, which I'd never been in before because, I was like a young player. I didn't sort of go those places. And I got called into the chairman's office. They knew it was my birthday. I had a present all wrapped up for me. So I opened it up, and we were sponsored by Goodman's Portsmouth at the time. And they gave me a portable CD player. And I thought, that's really nice. Then I came in training on Monday, and, there's a bit of a buzz around the club. We all had big team photos on the pitch with the sponsors. Goodman's are in, and they gave every player a portable CD player. Apart from me, they said, "Oh, you had yours on Saturday." So I thought it was nice. It was really nice to get it all wrapped up for my birthday and something special. But everyone else got one as well. Come the Monday morning at training. But there you go. That's the crazy world of soccer for you. But it was just a tremendous occasion, and obviously I had a great time at my 21st birthday party that night.
Yeah, brilliant. I just think that, the devastation, not only the fact that they gave everyone a CD player, but the fact that they also then didn't give you a second one, as if like, oh, no,
Exactly. Exactly.
It's already gone.
So it was sort of quite. I mean, it's quite funny. Obviously, I laugh about it. I laughed about it at the time, to be fair, but it's probably even funnier now. But that's sort of like the football world a little bit, really encapsulated there. But there we go.
Looking back on your playing career, obviously you had clubs like Portsmouth, City, Fulham, Palace. What are the biggest lessons or defining moments that shaped you as a leader, both on and off the pitch?
Sort of defining moments, I suppose. I mean, the first sort of big one going in leadership in the more traditional term was probably when I got asked to be player caretaker manager at Palace. Simon Jordan just called me in. I'd had a bad hip injury and I was struggling a little bit coming back from that. But I was still very much a player. I'd done my very basic coaching badge and I had probably had slight thoughts in the back of my mind about maybe going into coaching. I had coaching, some media stuff, or maybe agency stuff were the three things that I was back of my mind, maybe one day. But footballers think they're Peter Pan and will go on forever. So although you do sort of think about it, you very rarely when you're still playing, do you actually act upon it. And I suddenly got called in to the change room. Simon Jordan just asked me to take over. Said he'd sacked Steve Kember and Terry Bunovan, and he wanted me to take over as first team manager, like on a player caretaker basis. That was a defining moment for sure. Literally thrown into the deep end, get on with it. Luckily, John Goodman was the fitness coach at the time at Palace, who was excellent, and he was a massive help straight away for me. Really good at his job, but he also now helped me to do my new job. Because I'd never structured a training session for a team in my life, so I didn't have a clue really. although it's funny because, I've been in thousands, but suddenly you're asked to actually put it together and with a purpose, and it's a very different thing. So John Goodman was fantastic for me. And then very quickly I was able to bring Stuart Gray in, who was obviously very experienced. He'd not long left Aston Villa, was absolutely brilliant. And he taught me an awful lot then about coaching and the structure really, and big elements of leadership.
For those players transitioning into management, or people who not necessarily are professional football players, but would like to go down the football management route, coaching route, is it from that initial experience, that transition? What was the hardest part?
I mean, being organised and planning are so important. Sort of, you can't. Some people, I think, make out that they maybe just bowl up and wing it a little bit, but I'm not a big believer in it. I think even these people that try and make out they've done that, I think they have still done a bit of prep themselves, because I think it's so difficult to do, certainly, and I would never try it, and I'd never recommend it at all. So doing your homework, doing your proper prep, but also then being flexible, because especially sort of lower down the football food chain, if you like, you're going to get spanners thrown in all the time. If you plan a session for 15 players, is whoever's above you is going to nick 2 or 3 of your players at the last minute. So you need to be very much have a plan, but also be very flexible as you go along. And then the one sort of thing, or the biggest lesson I learned then, was when this time at Palace, when Stuart Gray came in to help me. He had a little saying, Stuart, and his saying was, during the week, our job as coaches and managers and leaders is to block up the rabbit holes. And that was his saying during the week. And what he meant by that was, come a match day, the players had been given all the information they need. Physically, they're in the right place. We've given them like enough training, but enough then rest leading into the game, and so they're sharp. Tactically, they've got everything that they need as well. So we've covered basically. There's nowhere to go. Come a match day, we've taken away all the excuses. That's blocking up the rabbit holes. So people need to be then accountable, and also as a person. I mean, certainly me, if I go into a game when I was a player and I thought, we've trained well this week, we're prepared. You never know what the opposition are going to throw at you quite, but we've done our homework on them a little bit, so we know enough about them, but also we're very focused on ourselves, what we're capable of doing. If you go into the game with that mentality, you're confident. It naturally brings confidence. Whereby if you think, if you've been out on a training pitch for two hours on a Friday, day before the game, and you're feeling a bit heavy-legged, straight away it gets in your head, we haven't prepared properly for this. And it does play a huge part, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I think preparation is massively key. And from a football point of view, there's so much data and everything out there. There's no excuse to not know everything you need to in order to prepare yourself for the game. When you took over Fulham in 2014, the club was obviously through disarray. It had a tough relegation and stuff previously under Felix. What were the first things that you introduced to help rebuild morale and performances and the culture at Fulham?
Yeah, well, I'd had sort of 3.5 years as a player at Fulham previously, then came back in, and I've been there for many years. So I knew the club really well. I knew the people, the fans, and all this stuff. I knew what the club was all about. And I mean, my big thing when I was towards the end of Felix's reign, I was going to first team games, and the Fulham fans were singing, "We want our Fulham back," because the club had lost its way. It lost its identity, and it wasn't. The fans were singing, "We want our Fulham back," because it wasn't their club anymore. It was just it had gone. It was in a very, very dark place. Literally my job, taking over as initially as caretaker and then as full-time manager, was to give the fans their club back. So it's something they can identify with again, and a football club they're proud of, to be part of, sort of thing. So that was my remit basically. Now the way I went about that, there were so many things wrong. I liken it to The Lion King, when the Pride Lands were all dark and under Scar, and it's all horrible, and then suddenly the lights come up and the lights go on, and that's all I did. I just tried to turn the lights back on. I mean, the office staff, everyone was based at Motspur Park, all the commercial guys and all this, so everyone's there, but they weren't allowed to mix with the first team players at all, or even see them. And it had become so much an us and them type thing. And so straight away, I lifted all that. My first training session, I said all the office staff can come out. I did it on the arena pitch, so all the office staff could come out and watch. There were there were 3 senior players who'd been like ostracised or made to train on the edge of the pitch on their own. So that Brian Ruiz being one of them. So the first thing I did was phone Brian up. I said, mate, listen, I can only apologise. I've taken over now. I can only apologise for the way you've been treated, but I'd love you to come back in, but you've got to want to, sort of thing. And he was brilliant, Brian. He just said, I just want to play football. So I got those boys straight back in. There are 3 international footballers, for goodness sake. So straight away, they came back into the group. And those were the main thing. And I wanted everyone. Fulham had always been a brilliant club. When I played there, then I went first back working under Roy. I remember when I was working under Roy Hodgson, I was doing the scouting when I first went back in for the Europa League run. And I also did some commentaries. And I was at a game, and Henry Winter had been in doing an interview with Roy the week before. And I was up at Anfield doing a game, and Henry saw me in the press room and came straight over, made a beeline. I said, I've got to say, so your place was brilliant. The atmosphere. And Motspur Park is quite small, the training ground and the canteen. And it was really bustly. And like the first team were in there, all the office staff were in there. And you're sort of like trying to get a seat. But it was a brilliant atmosphere. And Henry made point of it and came over to tell me, absolutely loved it. And that's what Fulham was all about. And suddenly it completely changed. And people were kept separate and no one was allowed to mix. And that's not Fulham. That's not what the club is. And what people expected and what people loved about it. Straight away, I just put all these things back. So it was quite, a lot of it was quite easy to do because it was just easy stuff that I just believed in, that I thought was right, and I felt other people needed. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the Fulham fans were singing, "We've got our Fulham back." So I did something right, at least.
Do you feel these sort of changes can be done under the management that's in place, or the players that are in place, or do you have to bring in a fresh face to apply these rules?
I think generally it would be a fresh face, because if suddenly someone was completely one end of the spectrum, then they decided to go the other, people won't believe in them. You wouldn't get buy-in because someone's completely changed their tune, and people won't have that. You see it's not genuine, and there's no sort of authenticity there, which is an important thing. So I would think because of that fact, generally there needs to be like a change in personnel somewhere, certainly at some level, and generally the person who was making those decisions, if it was an individual. But the environment is so important, and it's sort of bandied around as if, oh yeah, I'll just create a good environment. Saying it's one thing, but actually doing it, and you have to like live and breathe it, and you have to have buy-in from everyone else, and it's buy-in and actually sort of ownership, because it's theirs, it's their environment, it's everyone's environment. Everyone has to be part of it. Everyone has to buy into it and take ownership of it, and be then sort of protective of it almost. And it's easy. Lots of people talk about it and they ban this word around, environment, but actually doing something about it and creating a good one. And when it is good, it's so powerful, and so strong, and such a great place to be. People can't wait to get into work, and that's a great thing to have.
Another area in which you managed to create this environment was obviously with the Welsh national squad. What you achieved as a player, but also the big Euro run in 2016 and qualifying for 2020, and then the World Cup in 2022. What did those tournament experiences teach you about leading under pressure and getting the team to deliver more than what was expected?
Again, I mean, that was because you got to think back to the situation with Wales. It was Chris took over from Gary Speed, who was our mate. We played youth levels with him all the way through to the first team, and he was our mate, and he was doing a brilliant job with Wales. And then because of what happened, Chris and myself went in to take over, and it was literally a nation in mourning. And the players all loved Gary. I mean, everyone loved Speed. He was just a top guy. So that was it was quite a unique situation, and it started really tough, really hard. Results were not great. I remember we got smashed 6-1 away to Serbia in a quality World Cup qualifier, and sort of as low as we could be in it. But then things slowly. Well, there was one, again, you talked about defining moments earlier. There was a defining moment, big one for me. I mean, that Serbia game, it sort of bottomed out. And Chris had, out of respect for Gary, a lot of it, had done things, and also because he was being very successful. Chris had tried to keep things very much as Gary was doing it, but then by this Serbia, but sort of like hitting rock bottom, Cookie in the end said, "Well, we're on the verge of failure here. I'm going to at least try and do things my own way." But and I'd say didn't change it radically from what Gary was doing, because Speed was doing a brilliant job, but that was his way. And so Chris shifted a few things and made it very much his own. And then we went into the Euro qualification. But even that first game, there's huge defining moments where first game in the group, we're playing Andorra away, who were the whipping boys, or supposedly the whipping boys of the group. They just laid a new AstroTurf pitch, which is like running on treacle. It was horrible. We're 1-0 down to a dodgy penalty, and it's 1-1, and we're going into, I don't know, last 10 minutes, I think it was, and quite late on, certainly. 1-1 away to Andorra is a terrible start to the group. Probably, I don't think Chris would have lasted if that had been the result. Get a free kick, Gareth hits the wall, and never see it, but the referee said the wall's encroached, take it again. This time he puts it in the top corner. We go on and win the game. We're off to a great start, and then we go and qualify for the Euros, get to the semi-finals. But what people don't see is all that was part of the build-up to get in there, and it was tough and it was hard. But then I think because everyone had suffered and the players had suffered, there was that even a stronger bond. I mean, also it was a group of lads with sort of Gareth as obviously the star player, Gareth Bale, who's incredible. But he's playing with then a lot of his mates who he's grown up with and come through with. And these players and the staff had all suffered together. And then when things started to grow, the bond was so strong. Our sort of strapline, one of the guys in marketing came up with Together Stronger. And that was genuinely how we all were, as a group. And the staff were brilliant. We had a fantastic group of staff who were really tight with the players. There was a real respect. And everything had gone from being so bad and such a dark place, again, to coming through it together. So when we're in these big moments, and Belgium in the quarterfinals, and you go a goal down early on, the sort of togetherness and the belief and the strength in the group, everyone is just so strong, and it's genuine. But it's been built for a long time, and through initial sort of suffering. But it's like I say, it's not quite as rosy as just we got to the semi-finals, we're brilliant. There was a lot of stuff went on before that, a lot of hard work. I mean, we had good players as well who were coming to their peak. And then you had Gareth Bale, who's the world-class player in the group, who gave everything for Wales. And suddenly he had a little shift as well in his mindset, Bale, where he was always a brilliant player for Wales and whoever he played for, but he's always a brilliant player in the team, and he suddenly became like a brilliant player for the team. He almost became totally selfless, and his tracking back and making tackles in his own box was incredible. And then, I mean, how inspiring is that for, if we've got League One players who suddenly look up and see your world-class superstar tracking back and making slide tackles in his own box, you're like, wow, if he can do it, I can do it. And that just the whole message and everything about that group was just incredible.
Taking this, applying this to a non-football or non-pitch environment, obviously everyone experiences highs and lows. There's lessons and connections that happen during those highs and lows. Is there any way of not manufacturing, but is there any ways of cultivating that environment without those highs and lows?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest thing is trust, and it's again that needs to be built. So a lot of these things, and a lot of the stories I've just talked about, they do take time. And football, is probably time is the rarest and most precious commodity. But for sure, it's building that trust, and everyone. Yeah, if collectively there is that trust in a group, then you just believe in each other, and trust and a good plan is priceless. If you can achieve that. And a lot of it is again, like say, you said the word manufacture it. You can actively be aware of it and try and do it, but also it needs to be authentic. So I don't think you can't manufacture trust for me. I think trust has got to be a genuine, authentic thing. And again, it takes a little bit of time to generally, most people, you need to earn their trust. That's generally the way. So it does, I say, it does take a little bit of work and a little bit of time, but yeah, just being authentic and people knowing you actually care about them, that care element. And that was a big thing with Chris, with Wales as well. The players would run through a brick wall for him, literally, but they all knew he sort of cared about the group and them as individuals, and would show it. You know, he'd do things so they knew he cared about them, and then there were a lot of things that went on that maybe only certain individuals would know that he did to help that.
We talk about trust and almost this people first approach. And I think taking it back to football, there's so much stats and stuff in the game right now. How do you, as a manager or as a coach, how much of it is still down to that man management and also going on? Because stats won't show you that, I know one of these players is going through a divorce this week and it isn't the right time to play, or has something else going on in their personal life. How much is the balance between the man management and knowing the player and the stats and the combination of that?
It's, for me, it's really, really important. And the word you just said is balance. If it's all one, if you're just player centered and you don't take any of the stats or into account, you're missing a trick, you know, for sure, because they're so helpful and so useful and can give you so much information. So you'd almost be silly not to. But then if you go just stats based, you're missing a trick as well, and you won't be successful just on stats alone. It was quite refreshing for me, actually. I sat on a panel up at St George's for a recruitment course that the FA had put on, and someone I knew was lecturing on the course, and I went and sat on a panel where the guys at the end of it had to deliver a presentation. And so these are all from top Premier League clubs, these guys. And I was a bit worried going in, thinking it was all going to be stats, but all of them. So the guys from say 4 of the top 6 clubs I listened to, and they all made a big focus on how important it is still, how easy it would be not to, but how important they think the human element still is in scouting and recruitment of players. And I thought that was really refreshing for me. And I thought, oh, wow, this is brilliant. But then again, these are the top clubs. You would like to think, because they've got all the money at their disposal to do obviously all the stats and all different, coming from different areas, which they do, but they still realise the importance of the human element, linking it together. And again, back to what your word, Josh, was balance. And getting that balance right is vital. But the human element will always need to play a part. Otherwise, the game's completely gone in my book if that goes out of it.
No, I completely agree. You see that the best managers not only are tactically astute, but also are almost overly known as their man management style, because of the fact that it's almost like that's the thing that made them special. It was like, yeah, great. Anyone can learn the stats, anyone can learn the tactics and put players in a position. But it takes someone who has those man management skills to get the most out of those people who are walking out onto the pitch, or for any director of any football club or anyone just working generally, for those to get the best out of the people who are working for you, you have to have that connection, you have to have that buy-in, you have to have that understanding. I also want to talk about, though, how this applies elsewhere, because you've got a vast experience from being over in China, in Greece, being all over the world. How did it adapt your leadership and communication style when working with different cultures and environments? What universal leadership principles have you found work everywhere?
In fact, it fits straight into what we've just been talking about. So we went to China initially, did a year working in Beijing, and so we had some Chinese coaches who were already at the club. And so we worked closely with them. And the first thing they said to us, or one of the first things they said, was, you can't trust the local players. And we're like, what? They were talking about, so that these are Chinese coaches talking about Chinese players. And we're like, what are you talking about? So we had very much, and Chris is very much a people person sort of thing. You know, it's all about connections with people. And so we didn't have it at all. And then we went against their recommendations quite a bit and showed trust then in our local players. And they bought straight, and they were brilliant. I mean, we did certain things we were aware. So, like China, it's all the focus. I mean, things have changed over there a little bit in the football, but the focus was very much on the foreign players. You know, it was all, see every week, it was foreign player assist, foreign player scored the goal. and all the focus was on your foreign superstars. It's almost like your local players, your core group, were sort of neglected a little bit. So we very much, when we did all our presentations about the way we were going to train, and we needed them to understand it, to hopefully then buy into it. So when we're doing our presentations, what had always previously happened was it was just done in English, and then the translator had to translate everything for the local players. So we had a big split screen, and we did half in English and the other side in Mandarin. So they actually had it written up in their own language. So again, it just made them feel valued to start with. And then we explained our way of training, which was something very different to them. Because the first few days we hit them quite hard, but then it got easier as the week went on, obviously. So they thought we're training too hard Tuesday, Wednesday stay, that they're never going to be fit. But by tailing it off Thursday, Friday, they were in a good place then coming. But we had to explain that to them, which we did. But like I say, it was translated in Mandarin for them to read. So, and then, yeah, they were absolutely brilliant. Again, it took a little bit of time, but we gained their trust. And we were told it was a difficult group of Chinese players that we were inheriting, and they were brilliant. They were really, really good. And there were some colourful characters there, don't get me wrong, but they were really good lads. And a similar type thing in Greece. And again, our local Greek players were absolutely brilliant and completely sort of bought into what we were trying to do. But a big part of it is to make everyone feel valued and important, and they've got a voice, not just, when it's football and it's maybe a couple of superstars. It's not just all about them, because as good as they might be, if the other boys are disengaged and not doing it, it's not going to happen. So, yeah. So going around the world, people are people. That's the big thing we learned. Treat them with respect, and show them trust, and you get repaid with the same. And like I say, certainly in China and in Greece, we had brilliant experiences and made great friendships with players and staff, the locals sort of thing. So no, it was great to do.
Just on a wider point around the Chinese Super League, why do you think that the buying into that more globally didn't quite happen the way in which they were hoping to?
Yeah, it's all about the structure, really. They went in at the top straight away with world-class players without improving the level of the league first, and so it was really top heavy. So it wasn't built on any solid foundations. It was just throw money at it, basically, and get the best players. So each club had 2 brilliant players, 3 brilliant players, foreign boys they shipped in. So again, and the big thing about it was that they wanted then China to qualify for a World Cup, but it's all foreign players coming in, and so you're not really helping your local players. So although the league had a lot of money in it and around it, they didn't build up Chinese football, if you like. It was all about foreign players. And so a few of us went, myself, Chris, Tony Roberts, goalkeeping coach, Adam Owen, head of performance, and then we took an analyst and another fitness guy as well. So there's a few of us there. We went with the mindset, we're going to enjoy the experience as much as we're going to work hard, do a good job. We're also going to enjoy the whole experience. So we had a brilliant time, and you can speak to any of our group, and we all speak glowingly about our time in China, whereby we then speak to other European managers after games who we just played against their team, and they're all like, can't wait to get home, literally there for the money type thing. And you're like, well, that's not the right sort of environment or for the league to grow and improve, for the Chinese national team to improve. That's not the right sort of thing you want. People who are very mercenary and just in there to get the money, then get out. That's not going to help improve the league, and it didn't. And they threw too much money at it at the top level rather than build up any sort of. I think they then realised, and they got sort of consultants in to help with the grassroots stuff, but I still don't think they've done anything like enough. And also, these things, it's like probably a 10-year project or plan before you see any sort of anything coming to fruition. And I don't think they had the patience. Everything was about the here and now, and they wanted immediate success, and they wanted to see something tangible straight away. And unfortunately, with these, big project like that, it's going to take a long time.
I agree. I think it's one of those things where you got to build bottom up although it's not the prettiest and it's a longer term approach. I understand the superstar impact of getting, because obviously it brings eyeballs and it brings some level of quality. But if you don't have a pyramid that supports it and you don't have that pathway and the development of young players, it's never going to work as a long term sustainable project. That's different to how Greek football is and the structure in terms of it's not as supported financially. Obviously, there are owners that are putting money into football clubs. Don't get me wrong, but it's a very different setup to what happened in China. From your experience over in Greece, what do you think that could improve the attractiveness of the league?
Yeah, I mean, sort of like the reality of the Greek league is you get there's the big five clubs, there's the three Athens clubs and the two Thessaloniki clubs, and they're always going to be so. They change the structure of the league and the end of season playoffs, playouts quite regularly. It's always that top five are always the top five in some sort of different order. That's all that changes is the order of the big five. So it's hard to change that because they're such big clubs, and I don't think they want to change. The people in charge of those five clubs are happy with the way it is, and almost everyone else pretty much accepts that's how it is, and so they're all fighting. Then it was when we were there, they'd split it, so the top six go into playoffs at the end of the season, and then the bottom eight. So it's almost one of them. If you snuck into sixth spot, and we were close to doing it, you're then in the playoffs where you just play the big five a couple of times each. So you got like really tough games that you're unlikely to win. So you almost, do we actually want to sneak in to that playoff spot? And then chances are you're going to get spanked most weeks. So it's a funny sort of setup. And like I say, those five teams, I mean, certainly the four Addis, where Alan Pardew was manager in Thessaloniki, is probably they're probably the smallest of the five, certainly. But the other four, you know, AEK, Panathinaikos, Olympiakos, and PAOK are really big clubs. So I don't think the people in charge of Greek football want it to change. If there's not a desire for change, the people at the top, it's not going to happen. So I think because of us, let's get it right. It's because of they have the power, and you know, a lot of footballers we know politics get involved and power and stuff like that. So yeah, I can't see it changing anytime soon, to be honest.
I agree. I think when it gets to a point where the vested interests are so high to keep things the same, change becomes very difficult. And I think that's where over in our country with the independent regulator coming in, I think a lot of that was due to the fact that there was top clubs wanting to keep a power and a structure and a hold of their position. And they didn't want more competition to challenge, you know, their stranglehold on what's going on. One person that's consistent throughout your career is obviously Chris Coleman. You've had such a long and successful partnership with him in multiple roles. What makes your collaboration with Chris so effective, and what advice would you give around building a strong working partnership and relationships with people in the workplace, whether it be football or not?
Like me and Chris, it was built over a long period of time. Like, so we played Wales under 18s together, 21s, then the full squad before we then started playing club level together at Fulham. So we had a lot of history even before we played together at Fulham, and then we were obviously sort of two senior players in a successful sort of team on the up. And yeah, so Chris was captain and I was sort of like vice captain or whatever, if you like. And so it wasn't so far different from suddenly when Chris then became manager and I'm assistant manager. You know, it's all the things. Chris is very good with people and he's very good at what he's very good at. And sort of my job was to do the things he wasn't so good at. And again, back to your word balance, Josh, that's just huge in football for me. And if between us we had a good balance of getting everything done that was needed, it didn't sort of matter who was doing what so much, as long as it got done. And between us, we made sure everything was covered and it was all done. Yeah, we both sort of knew what we were good at, really. Yeah, you know, you stick to that and do that, and it worked very well for a long time.
Filled the rabbit holes, as it were.
Blocking up rabbit holes, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Now you serve as a Premier League matchday delegate and work as a consultant and help with leadership across different parts of the game. Now you've seen it from a more admin and corporate perspective. You've got more experience with the off pitch side of the game. How have you managed to take those experiences from on the pitch management and helped apply that to the more admin and corporate side of the sport?
Yeah, it's difficult, but is, or a lot of things are sort of interchangeable. I mean, with it for like the corporate side of football, but then also the corporate world, stuff from football into the corporate world. There are so many crossovers, and it's all the same thing. The things we spoke about already. It's treating people in the right way. It's still whether it's a corporate thing or the more financial stuff. And again, some things you can't change, and it's understanding that, because if at the top level there's no desire to change, there's no point in you getting frustrated trying to change things maybe lower down, because it just won't happen. So it's sort of it's understanding where you are within the bigger picture, what you can do. And when we're younger, we want to change the world and make everything a better place, and this and the other. But it's getting sort of older, a bit more experienced. It's realizing, almost sort of pick your fights a little bit, and understanding what you can change and influence and affect. And sometimes you just can't. So this is something I've learned massively now. I've had really good times in football where the environment's been fantastic and everyone's pulling together and it's brilliant. It's so good. And I've had the opposite, where changing rooms a toxic place, and it's the club, wherever you might be, is in a right mess, and it's a horrible place to be. So now, understandably, I think I'm in a position now where I'm thinking I'm only going to go into something that's good. I'm not going to knowingly go into something that's terrible. Why would you? As I get to a certain age and I realise that maybe I need a bit less in life and what's important and stuff. So yeah, that's the position I'm at. But everything is sort of interchangeable, really, and it's all about the way you treat people. And yeah, I think it's still very, very people based is how I approach everything, and that's what's important. All I want to do and all I will do now is work with good people, and people who I've got a respect for and I think are doing a good job for the right reasons. If I don't think those are the cases, I just won't do that, whichever the job might be.
One of the other mistakes that I personally see is that people think it's not working, so we must add a new thing, and they keep adding rather than stripping down and focusing on what actually matters. It's so easy to just get distracted and keep adding new stuff, new ideas, new tactics, new players, or even from a financial point of view, we need to do some new modeling, new forecasting. We need to do more new things and chasing the next thing and overly complicating systems and processes, rather than stripping back to the basics. What needs to be consistent and what needs to be correct to get an environment that's successful? What would you say those three simple things need to be?
Yeah, I think behaviours, collectively as well. So that's coming from the top, is the most important, really. So again, no, yeah, behaviours are so important throughout. And if you're trying to tell the people sort of lower down the pyramids, maybe you must behave in the right way, whereby the people at the top are running riot, it's not going to happen. So it needs to be a consistent level of behaviours all the way through. Again, that authenticity thing I spoke about earlier. Again, you can't just play it and sort of make things up because you read it in a book or it sounds good, or you have to sort of live and breathe it, if you like. So those are certainly the main two. For me, I'm struggling for a third at the moment, but I think, yeah, that's those are the biggest two for me, really.
I think they're really key. The funny thing is, I just said focus and then said three things rather than one. So that that shows that I haven't quite myself got this nailed down yet. I'm always looking for three things, not one. If you're someone that's stepping into a leadership position who maybe not you haven't led before, you've earned that promotion, whatever department you're in, you've like landed that leadership position. Now all of a sudden you're not only managing the systems and the tasks, but you're also managing people maybe for the first time. We spoke about earlier the importance of preparation. What would be your advice on the preparation and getting things right when you're stepping into a leadership position?
I mean, the big thing is people really worry and sort of panic, like, am I ready? I don't think anyone's ever really ready. Just go for it, I think is the biggest thing to go in. Because like I say, I think everyone, there's sort of a saying in football, like, you're never ready, but just accept the challenge to do it in the first place. But yeah, I mean, the preparation is there. If you sort of like know you're then going to go into the job and you get time to do, because quite often, like I said, there's different ways. So, I mean, my Crystal Palace thing, I literally got dumped on me and I had no idea. It's like sort of think on your feet a little bit. I think the big thing is if you're in a leadership position, is to work out pretty quickly the people sort of in and around you, and if it's like a pyramid, people under you, where they sit and whether firstly you can rely on them and trust them. If you don't know them that well, then you might have to be something you might need to be aware of and then work on building that trust or find out about them. Because ultimately it's about, if you're in a leadership role, it's having good people. And that's what it's all about, because you're either going to look good or get fired because of the people you have working with you, for you, in and around you. So it's knowing a little bit about them, and again, doing just a little bit of homework on anything about them, their home life, if they got a dog or a pet or something, just people like that, and if suddenly you're then the boss, you can chat to someone who's in a position underneath you and you know a little bit about their home life, their family, like I say, whether they've got a pet and things like that. And just showing you actually care a little bit, you've taken time to do a little bit of research. Even small things like that can make a big difference. But again, as long as it's authentic and you're finding this out to use it in the right way to try and build a strong relationship and help this person, because ultimately they're going to help you. So any sort of research, and then I mean the big thing, or one of the hardest things, then people would sort of like below you, if you like. Okay, the most important relationships probably are the ones up, managing up, which is very difficult to do. And some people think they have a mindset, well, they're above me, they need to almost like look after me. It doesn't work like that in the workplace. It's you need to work on those relationships, and sometimes they can be very difficult to do, and to forge those relationships and to understand more about the people above you and what they want and need and require from you in your role. Because again, ultimately, if you're not keeping them happy, you're probably going to be out of a job. So it's finding out what their wants and needs are, and then trying to deliver that whilst working with all these people below you. So there's a lot of things that go into it. And if you're lucky enough to get the chance to do some research, then it puts you in a better place for ultimately all these different relationships that you're going to need to have.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. One of the things I was thinking there as well was you don't need to be a leader to apply these lessons. Like, I think this helps if people were to take this approach, no matter what their position in an organization, it would make you far more effective and help build the team and culture around you. I had this thing where, so I only ever played like semi-professional football, so I'm no footballer. But I remember it took me. I was captain of a lot of teams when I was younger, and the one when I stepped up to when I don't know, I was 16 and I first stepped up to a reserve match, and obviously I wasn't captain because there was a more senior player than me there, and it hit me at that moment. It's just like, I don't need the armband to be the captain. I can still lead by example. I can lead with voice. I can still organize on the pitch. It wasn't the armband that was giving me permission to be the leader. It was my character. I think anyone listening, if you're not in a leadership position, everything that we spoke about today doesn't just apply to those in those positions. I think it's something that everyone can take away and apply. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kate. It's been a really, really pleasurable conversation, loads of great advice. Again, for anybody who would like to network with myself and Kit, ask their own questions, you might want to dig deeper into more the playing side, or you might want to learn more about the leadership advice that Kit has to offer. Again, there will be a link in the description below. I really hope you can all join us. Thanks again for Kit for joining us. It's been great having you on.
Pleasure. Cheers, Josh. Nice to meet you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye bye.